Hi, folks. I did it. I hit live. I got here 10 minutes ago, and I got 4 or 5 guests already. And but anyway, I'm live. I'm going to bring them right on because here's Joe. Here's Eddie. Here's our old pal, the King, George Anthony. Hi, guys. We're waiting for Anthony. Oh, let's see. We have Anthony DiChiaro on, but his microphone is not working. He'll figure it out. Anyway, talk amongst yourself. Aunt George, Anthony, talk to these guys. Give me a break. I'm soaking wet with sweat.
Go change your shirt.
It's good to see you guys. It's
a lot of years, George.
Now this is my 48th year. Long time training horses. 1977 when I started. But I've kind of done everything I've wanted to do as far as announcing, which I still do. I still fill in at Yonkers Raceway and at Saratoga Harness. But I always wanted to train thoroughbreds, and I've been doing that since 2016. And it's been a pretty good ride for me along the way. All the years I had good.
I was lucky enough to be stabled next to you, and you had a big stable, and you had the whole barn. I got to ask you a question, and you were very successful back then. And you did it all, and I have no idea why you switched that and why you wanted to be an announcer, but you're a great announcer. But that girl, was that your wife? She was gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. I hope you're still married to her. She was a good girl.
No, she's gone.
Oh, God.
You ask bad questions, Larry.
I'm married.
Yeah, Larry, you shouldn't kick people's business in the street.
Well, I haven't seen him in probably since 2006, maybe 5. So that was 20 years ago. But,
first of all, I left Yonkers in 1994.
I'm talking about the Meadowlands. The Meadowlands I was at with you.
Oh, well, I was forced out of Yonkers in 94 by your friend Steve Starr. And he's not a very likable guy. Nobody I know can like this man in the business, and deservingly so. So I came to Yonkers approximately 1987, 88, and I lasted 5-6 years or so. And then I came to the Meadowlands in 94, and I stood there through 2011. And then when Governor Christie destroyed all the racing in New Jersey, I sold all the horses because I knew I wasn't going to be going down to Exit 8, training horses off a farm. I didn't want to be doing any more shipping back and forth and all the nonsense. So I had an offer to go to Pocono and to do their live television simulcasting. And the first year that I was there, I rose the handle about 20%. And then I rose it again the second year, another 20, when a lot of the tracks were going downhill. We had a pretty good show. And
you bet a lot of money, that means.
The racing was good. I don't care about the money. I care about what I like to do, And if I don't like to do, the money is irrelevant,
No, I'm talking about the handle. I said, you must have bet a lot of money. I was joking.
Yeah. So I did really good. I had a boss that kind of was a little insane. And I can't go into much detail because they fired me in 2015. And I can only say, because I have a gag order, that it was settled in the courts. And I can tell you that I was unjustly fired. I did nothing. One of their allegations was that I got Brian Sears a hotel room for $69. Totally absurd. I did get him the room, but I got it through the casino host. I had nothing to do with the price of what anybody was going to charge him. And I asked the casino people to do him a favor, and they did. And he got me, I think he was just looking for some kind of an excuse, but it is what it is.
Well, what was wrong with that?
Nothing at all. Brian Sears was a big draw for our fans, and I explained that to management there. That to have drivers like him come to the racetrack was a big draw. And Brian liked to gamble and maybe have something to eat in the track, and said it was to spend his money. And who cares? They didn't see it that way, and this and that. Again, I think they were just looking for an excuse. So it was okay. So I left there in 2015, and immediately in 2016, I did what I really wanted to do since a young boy, and that was to train the thoroughbreds. So I called my good friend Mike Maselli, who I've known for over 20 some odd years. And Mike was a good rider, by the way. I'll tell you a couple of good stories about Mike. One of them is that I brag about him all the time because he was a good rider. He won the Travers Stakes, and people don't know that. And he was also second in the Kentucky Derby in 1974 to Cannonade. So a couple of weeks ago, I always brag about him because I like him so much, and I said to somebody, Mike Maselli was second in this 1974 Kentucky Derby. I mean, the guy could ride a horse. So he looked over to me and he said, King, who finished second in the Derby last year? I said, who the hell knows? He said, that's what I'm trying to tell you. It don't really matter. If you don't win, it don't really matter. But anyway, I went to Mike in 2016, and he wasn't doing too well. He had about 3 horses. And, I said to Mike, I want to come aboard, but I want to come aboard, and you got to change things. You're not doing well. And if you keep going on this path, you're going to go out of business. You're coming to work just to come to work and have something to do. Let's put our heads together. We have 100 years of experience and try to figure this out and try and do a lot better. Well, it took me about a year and a half before I kind of got the feel of it, because you can't use the harness racing book. You got to throw that in the garbage. This is a totally different game. I'll take a line from Eddie DeLauro. He says, if the thoroughbreds step on a cigarette butt, they go lame. You remember saying that, Eddie?
Yeah.
But basically, it took me about a year and a half to kind of feel things out and this and that. And after a year and a half, we had a lot of success. I won a lot of races. There was a certain time where I was winning about 40% of the races. And a lot of the thoroughbred people, they were saying, oh, it's that harness guy, and whatever. That's typical racetrack stuff, But I did really well. I had a horse called the Dixie Twister who had about 5 wins for me. I took that horse off of, I think, J.C. Kimmel. I took a horse off of Mott by the name of, oh, God, I'm trying to remember names. I tell you, when you get old, you forget all the names. But anyway, I took a horse off of Mott that I had 5 wins. I took a horse off of Rudy Rodriguez that had 5 wins. And so I've had good success, And a lot of the horses that got claimed away from me, I didn't see them anymore. They raced once or twice, and they were out the door. So I knew we were doing pretty good, and I had a lot of fun with that. And it's such a different game. Honestly, the trainers really, I don't think the drivers respect the trainers. They really don't care. They go out there and do what they want to do, and not in the thoroughbreds. It doesn't work that way, And I remember putting Irad Ortiz on a horse one day. It was on the turf, and I said, Irad, please don't move this horse until the turn. Name of the horse, by the way, now that it's come back to me, was Mr. Messina. It's a good horse. But anyway, there were horses that were starting to loop me going into the far turn. And a couple of the owners says, oh, boy, we're getting past. And I said, I told him not to move yet. Sure enough, starting in the turn, he makes his move where I asked him to do it. And he winds up opening up 3.5 in the stretch. And, he won going away. And here's a guy who's a multi-talented, big winner, big money winner. I mean, just tremendous. And he's telling me in the winner's circle, thank you so much for this ride. Thank you for the opportunity. Boy, you make me look good. I appreciate. And I'm saying to myself, wait a second, this guy just won, almost $50,000 for me. And I own 30% of this horse. And I want to kiss his ass in Macy's window, for what he did. guy complimenting me when I'm just a speck of what he rides for in the thoroughbred business. You know, we have a small barn, me and Mike, you know, but I had about 5 or 6 horses, you know, for the last few years, and I've cut down now to just a couple because of, you know, coincidentally, I'm kind of fed up with this HISA fence. I don't feel
Yeah.
investing in not being able to, do some therapy on our horses, therapeutically treat them to make them better. And in other words, you just claim a horse and you suffer the consequences. That's really not for me. And they need to change their ways, the way they do business. Because if you look now at the entries at Aqueduct, you'll see very small fields. They have a very hard time putting a 9-race card together. And it's going to keep dwindling unless they kind of, you know, have some kind of a camaraderie with the horsemen, and they have to understand that therapeutic is good for horses. Therapeutics is needed for horses, and when they kind of knock our hands in handcuffs and they don't let us do anything to them to enhance their performance, it makes it pretty rough. So I've cut down to just a couple, and one horse is a grass horse who I just turned out for a little while. He's a horse that I won with over the summer at Saratoga, and I was disqualified and placed second for interference. And another horse who I just recently claimed, he just raced about a week ago, and he finished 4th. He raced really good. It was a day where it was really cold. It was last week, I think it was, it was very cold, and all the races that day were going 24, 48, 114 for 6. And this race of mine, I didn't tell Lascano to go to the front, but he did go, and he went 23, 46 and change, 112, 112. And I knew that he was in trouble in that race. The horse only gave it away in the last 50. So I really like the runners. I'm having a good time. The trainer is the boss in the runners. If I come in that barn and I bark, they stand at attention. The riders respect the trainers. They understand that we're the authority, and you never see a rider do something that he wants to do rather than what you ask him to do. You know, I'm not going to say I started Dylan Davis, but Mike and myself gave Dylan a lot of rides when a lot of people weren't giving him rides. I saw the talent in Dylan. I saw the honesty in Dylan, and now he's doing really well. And he's in Florida, you know, and we're great friends. And I like to get him aboard when I can. And I'm glad to see that he's having a very successful career. But I use Lascano. I like Eric Cancel, although I have a lot of bad luck with Cancel. He gets in trouble all the time, but I know he tries like hell for me. I tell you, he's a good kid. And so it's really Lascano, Cancel, and Dylan Davis that I use most of the time now. And once in a while, I like to get Rosario. He's one of my favorites, you know. So I'm having a good time. Hey, look, I'm 75 years old. My health is very good. I don't have any problems, you know, and I'm kind of doing what I want to do. I'm doing it ever since I came in the business. You know, when I was a 20-year-old kid, I hated the harness. I couldn't stand it. And I lived in the Bronx. I was 15 minutes away from the track. I lived in Pelham Parkway in the Bronx, but I was always going as a kid to the runners. You know, I was always, since I was like 12 years old. And if somebody told me when I was 20 that I was going to be the leading trainer at Yonkers, I would have told them to buy a straitjacket and to commit themselves in Creedmoor Hospital. You know, took a crazy turn. There came a time when I wanted to become involved in racing, and I thought I could use my voice, and I learned how to call the races, and that took about over a year to learn. That's not an easy thing to do if you're going to do it properly, you know. And then, you know, I was looking really to get a break in the thoroughbreds, and I couldn't find a break, you know. And Dave Johnson, I gave him a letter and I gave him a tape, and I still have the letter here. And he said to me, you know, it's very hard to break in. There's not many openings. And then I got lucky. I got to go to Ocean Downs in 1977, and immediately I was liked. I had good press, and next thing you know, I was at Harrington Raceway and Free State Raceway and Laurel Raceway, and and then I subbed over at the Liberty Bell. Next thing you know, I was, back up in Roosevelt and Yonkers, and and then I've called, of course, Pocono. I've filled in a Freehold, Saratoga. So, it's been pretty cool. I've had a good time, but I was lucky to bump into an old time horseman. Maybe some of you guys might have remember him, Larry. I think you'll remember him. It was Eddie Taylor, and it was
Yeah.
Eddie who took me under his wing in Maryland in 1978. And I went to work for him, for like $150 a week. And I'd work about 12 hours a day, but I was like a sponge with him, and I could learn everything I could. And I can still hear him today, whether I put a harness on a horse at the Thoroughbreds, or I put a harness on a horse in the harness, or I put a blinker on a horse. I can hear him say, "Jesus Christ, son, what the hell are you doing?" I hear him yelling. But he made me, what I am, and I adopted a lot of his ways, and then of course I adopted some of my own. And look, you have to have luck in the horse business. You have to, not that there's no skill. There's so much more skill in the harness racing business as to opposed to thoroughbred that I really laugh. Those guys could never, and I mean never in capital letters, do our business, because they could never come in right away and do hobbles and rig a horse up. And rigging a horse in our business is huge.
Of course, it's everything.
Ted Wing was a great guy on harness to hook up a horse. He was great at hooking one up. You know who else was Michael Chance. Those guys were tremendous, So,
Yep.
yeah, but you see, when you go to the thoroughbreds, there's nothing to hook up, okay? They all wear the same shoes. There's two bits, whatever. Okay, it's blinkers on, blinkers off, bar shoe on, bar shoe off, weight on, weight off. There's really no, they go out for 1 mile, they come in, they're in ice, I mean, it's a joke. Sometimes that these guys that we put on the pedestal, it's that they have a lot of numbers, they have a lot of horses. The jocks are very loyal to them, and this and that. But it's such an easy game.
All right, George.
I didn't find it hard at all.
George, two things. First thing is, stop moving your phone or whatever you're talking into, because every third word we lose. We lose the mic. I don't know what it is. The second thing is, I let you talk for 19 minutes, and you haven't said one thing that I disagree with. And it's amazing. And all these guys that are on with you, Anthony and Joe and Eddie, they know everything you said about HISA. I did 2 podcasts about that. Everything you said about thoroughbred trainers versus standardbred trainers, I agree. Everything that you said, I agree with. You're the first person I know that talks as much as you, but backs it up, but actually has results to back up everything you said. Because when I got to the Meadowlands and you were there, you were a couple of barns away.
Yeah.
And I went there, and out front you had the king and this and that. And I said, this guy's nuts. Why don't he go back to announcing? And then you kept winning races and winning races and winning races.
I was usually in the top 10 or top 12 in either money earned and in wins. And I only had about 15 horses really at the Meadowlands. And, I did a lot of work myself. Even at Yonkers, I didn't have assistant trainers really. I did most of the 99% of the training myself. I'm very hands-on, and, okay, so I backed up a lot of things that I could do. I appreciate that.
You backed up everything. Even when I heard that you were an announcer, you're a real good announcer. If you had to pick standardbred training, thoroughbred, or announcing, which one would you have? Which one? What's your real love?
Well, I get that question asked all the time. And I used to say that if I got into a slump when I was racing horses, I wanted to be an announcer. So
that's another thing. You have an answer for everything, George.
I had the good fortune to work under Jack Lee, and as far as I'm concerned, whether it's harness, thoroughbred, or anything, there was nobody like Jack. Jack had the greatest voice.
Jack
He
was great.
really smoothed me out. He wasn't a good person, you know, and we
Uh,
had business together.
he was a good
and
announcer. He was a good announcer.
business together, and he stole half of my money. You know, there was like $7,000 that we had in an account, and half was mine. And next thing you know, I bought a new car, and I came to work one night, and it was gone. You know, and so I was gone from Roosevelt because of that reason. And then I sued him in court, and he had to pay me. And because I sued him, he tried to blackball me at all the racetracks. And obviously that got him into where he was fired at Freehold. It's really a terrible story, because he, as great as an announcer as he wasn't a good person off the microphone. You know, he didn't have any friends, and he should have, you know. But, you know, along the way, a lot of people don't know also that I also was the ring announcer for boxing at Madison Square Garden, 1980, 1981. I did a lot of shows at Madison Square Garden. So I've had a lot of fun in my life. I had I wore a lot of hats, you know. But it comes with hard work. It doesn't come with somebody knocked on my door and said, "Oh, hi, this is for you. Just go out there and get it." I paid my dues. I paid my dues in every aspect of what I had to do. I was willing to sacrifice. You know, for 8 years before I came to New York, I lived on the road like a gypsy. I went from hotel to hotel, racetrack to racetrack. You're talking from Ocean Downs to Harrington, Harrington to Dover, Dover to Pocono, and then back on that same circuit for 8 years. It wasn't fun. I made it fun, but it wasn't fun to live in all different places. My goodness, my clothes were on a clothes rack in a car, on a piece of metal. And you moved around like a gypsy. Look, you have to love the horses. You have to love the business. You have to be very dedicated. And if
Without a
you're
doubt.
not doing those things, you're not going to be successful. If you don't have the dedication and you don't want to put in the time, go do something else.
If
Very
you consider
good.
it work.
Listen, before we go on,
on.
there's something I wanted to do this in the beginning, and I was going to do it in the beginning until Eddie called me and told me about George. I want to get through two things, so just sit tight and listen. And there's a few things that I want to say. First thing I want to say is, and I'm going to put the pictures up real quick so we'll get through this. I want to let everybody know a bunch of you called in, got this book. It's almost sold out again, so please call up and get it. This is the book that Alfred Natoli wrote about his years in the horseman. Now, Alfred Natoli, that's the guy, you probably remember this scene from Casino. That's Alfred on the left and Pesci on the right. So for those of you who don't know who Alfred is and what movies he's in, this is just one clip that I found. That's him. So go out and get call Alfred up. And Alfred's number is, I should know it by heart. I talk to him 15 times a day. His number is 973 953 1247. That's 973 953 1247. It's a great book, a lot of pictures. I went through this last time with you. There's a million pictures in here. Picture on there, all about movie stars, celebrities, everything. So get the book before, because he just ordered a bunch more and they're almost sold out. The other thing I want to mention is a girl called Carla Manners. She got a hold of me this week and said that Terry Gia, I don't remember her, but maybe you guys know her. Teresa Gia.
No. You got it wrong, Larry. Tony Giovanelli.
No. That's another guy. This is a girl who was a groom that worked for Jerry Silverman, worked for Mickey Nichols, worked for Ned Bowers, and she just died. Her obituary, I wasn't able to find it. I got home too late. I've been in the hospital all day. her obituary's on the USTA website. Her name is Teresa Giovanni Nanucci, and she had a nickname called the Big Mare. That's a picture of her, and this is she was
Giovannucci.
yeah. How do you say that name, you Italian guys?
Giovannucci.
Well, how did I say it? Anyway, that's she just passed away, and she was a big animal lover. And if you go on the website, you could donate to. She just wants you to send any money you could into to save the animals and stuff like that. If I was going to do a whole thing on her, but I was in a hospital all day. The other thing I want to say, and then we'll get back to us, is if you remember this guy, this is Bobby Czyz. Bobby Czyz. He was on my podcast. He's a 3-time world boxing champion, and if you want to see his whole thing about his whole life story, it's an unbelievable story, and it should be made into a movie. What this guy went through. And so if you go to my podcast on podcast 55, he was a guest on the podcast, and I got a phone call. From a friend of mine. He told me some bad news about Bobby, and I text Bobby, and he called me right back, and we talked for a while. And this is what happened to Bobby. He developed cancer, and his jaw, his cheekbone, his nose, his head, everything. And but he's in good spirits. I talked to him about a couple of different therapies and everything, but it's a pretty serious thing. He's a great guy. And from what I understand, I haven't had time to look at it or find it. There's a GoFundMe page to try to help him through this, because he don't have any, I don't believe he has any insurance or anything. And so for all you fight fans, he's a great guy, a good guy, and a good friend. And just kind of help him out.
He was a tough kid.
Wow.
He was a tough guy. And I believe if he didn't keep moving up in weight classes, and because I don't believe he was a natural heavyweight or even light heavyweight, but if he would have stayed where he started, he probably would have been undefeated. He's just a tough guy and a real nice guy.
Yeah.
All right.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but when you said Gio, I thought you meant Tony Giovanelli. He also passed away this week.
I saw that too. I saw that too on Facebook, but unfortunately, I wasn't able to prepare nothing. That's why I really don't want to do these shows, because I'm all over the place. And then on top of it all, I'm starting to write that TV series, and I'm supposed to go out to California to meet with the executives from Fox about the movie, and I'm getting that surgery done on the 7th, so I can't even go. But I'm trying to. I'm doing too many things, and that's why I really shouldn't be doing this, because it's all bundled up. But we got a treat. We got George Anthony, so he could because I'm sure.
I hope I call the race in the goddamn movie.
What's that?
I hope you make me the race caller in the movie.
Well, we're probably gonna need one. We're probably gonna need one. It all depends. It all depends about this AI stuff now. Now, first I had to fight COVID, then I had to fight the writer's strike, then the actor's strike, then the union strike. Now the AI stuff. It's been going on now since 2019. But anyway, it's coming to an end, but so is everything else. So I hope it hurries up. All right, we can talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. I'm very interested in.
We lost Anthony.
Yeah, go ahead.
We lost Anthony, Larry.
We lost Anthony.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, you lost one, Anthony, and you got another one.
Yeah.
You there,
There he
Anthony?
is.
Buy one, get one free.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he still can't talk.
Then, no, I guess he's all right now. I want to know one thing, Daddy. Did you ever order that stuff from?
No, I never had time because I was racing. I've been racing a couple of days, and I really haven't had the time. And I'm gonna do it, and I will do it. You know.
Somebody
And,
told me to race the horse today.
Yeah, I raced today. Yeah. He raced well. He went 1.125 miles, and he cut it. Eric Consell rode him, and I finished second. But Dick Duttrow had a gorilla in there, boy, and he just went by me like I was tied to a fence post. But he finished second. For my last
Well.
5-6 starts, I had 2 wins, 2 seconds, a third, and a fourth. So they're racing well,
Yeah,
So
you
my
opened up-
horses are winter. The summertime, it's tough. George knows the summertime is tough.
You opened
Right,
up
Georgie?
10-1 today. You banged him hard early.
Huh?
Opened up.
Yeah, he
2-1.
opened up 2-1. 10-1 shot, morning line, 10-1. He opened up 2-1.
That's right. I watch everything.
You know what Eric Consell said to me one time? He said, Eddie, we're both in the same boat. So you're a small trainer, and I'm a small jockey. I mean, not literally small, but, he says, you got to deal with Todd Pletcher, Chad Brown, Shug McGahee, and so on and so forth. He says, I got to deal with the Ortiz brothers, Rosario, Velasquez. So we're here to win. No matter what I ride for you, we'll try. So, I mean, he went for me last week. He's a good kid,
Very good. I don't care about these guys. They don't impress me. If I got my horse ready to go, I'll knock heads with them. I don't care.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I you know me. I had a big argument. The agents, I never call. I just put down who I want, and then if they take them, fine. If they don't, avanable. I don't care. So I pick my crop, because they spin you no matter what.
Yeah.
So Gulfstream's in trouble there, Larry.
Why?
Well, Stronach, the casinos, they give it maybe a couple years, and they're gonna, it's in the Pollock report. Horse racing is getting to be really ridiculous. HISA is going up with the prices now, with the fees for the owners. They started out with 90, now it's 100. Now they're going to go to 150 every time you start a horse. Now the jockeys is going to go to 100 and I think 130 or 140 amount.
Mm-hmm.
It's getting so costly here in New York that new track, they're going to draw flies. There is not going to be no new trainers coming there. Right, George? Right or wrong?
Hard to say. New trainers? No, there isn't any new trainers in the business no more. All they're doing is cutting their own throat is what they're doing, When you look at Florida, you look at Gulfstream, and you're right about it. It might have a 2 or 3 year shelf because now they're into that decoupling thing, and you see what happened
with Santa Anita, right?
With Pompano. Now it's going to be a decoupling with Gulfstream, but you know what? I think what you're going to see in the future is racing at Hialeah. I think Hialeah is going to come back.
They're going to move to Hialeah. What I heard through the grapevine, they're going to. If Gulfstream closes, Hialeah would reopen to Thoroughbreds.
Well, what about the training center that Stronach built in Boynton Beach or wherever it is? I thought they were going to move Gulfstream Racing to there and sell Gulfstream property.
That I don't know.
Billions and billions.
Well, that was the plan 20 years ago when me and Mike McCarthy were the first ones to get stalls at that place. because he raced horses for the guy who built it. And
Yeah.
Mike stopped riding then, and he stayed with me, and I was teaching him the training end of it. And we both went down there, I think, with 10 horses, I believe, and we both I think we took over a whole barn. And he built that place with a tote board in the infield and room for grandstand and everything, because we were talking about it 20 years ago that they were going to sell Gulfstream property and move everything over to the training center. And that's why would I don't know. I don't know. Hialeah, last year of racing at Hialeah, I was there. In fact, I won the last race that they ever raced at Hialeah. And the barn areas, I mean, it's a beautiful, beautiful place, tree lined, and it's gorgeous, but it's not Gulfstream.
Didn't someone steal the flamingos from Hialeah? Did you hear that story?
I don't know, but after the seventh race, they would have the flight of the flamingos, and all them flamingos in the infield, the little tugboat in the middle there, they would chase them up, and they would have the flight, and they would delay the races for like 20 minutes, and all them flamingo, hundreds of them, would fly all around the infield, and then land back in the water, and then racing would resume.
I'm not kidding, Larry. Years ago, I was reading that somebody came in and stole all the flamingos.
I don't know.
It's a true story.
But there were a lot of. There must have been 100 of them, maybe more.
Yeah,
probably
more.
More.
They were all stolen. It's
Wow.
a true story. I
were beautiful.
One of you guys heard about that. Yeah.
They were all pink. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful sight.
Yeah.
Anthony DiChiaro, why do you keep cutting out? I keep losing you all the time.
I've been having internet problems all day. I think
They have that thing. I had to buy it when I was.
I've been having trouble all day with the internet.
All them boosters and everything. Anyway, George Anthony, I know you don't. I know you probably not probably. I know you're well aware of everything that's going on. But if I was you, I don't believe, because I looked a little bit into it, I don't believe that HISA is ever going to go away. If anything, they're gonna probably get stricter. They have no clue what they're doing. They're trying to get some horse people on there, which I think they did, but it's not going to make a difference. And you're 1,000% right that these racehorses, especially the standardbreds, need help. They need help. You can't race them 30, 40, 45 times a year without giving them any kind of help. And HISA slammed the door on everything. The thoroughbreds get away with it a little bit, but because they race every 3-4 weeks, but the standardbreds can't. So my advice to you is, if you're going to stay in the horse business, get back in the standardbred business. It may not last, but if it does, there's a need for guys like you.
Larry Roman offered me $1 million in horses if I went back in the harness, but I told him I don't cap that in the harness business anymore. You know, if there was still a barn area at the Meadowlands today, I'd still be there.
Yeah.
Still be there. But I just can't put up with the stall rent and the shipping and back. If I'm too old for that, I'm just not going to do that. You know.
I agree.
I wouldn't do it either.
Honest.
And jogging 4 miles and 10 below zero.
That doesn't bother me. I can still do that. It wouldn't bother me. One thing I do miss is sitting behind the horses. I do quite a bit. But he said when it comes to harness, you can kiss harness racing goodbye. Because look in the thoroughbred business. Look, if you have a bleeder, you want to treat him excessively other than Lasix, you can't do it. If you have a horse that's deficient in a red blood count and you want to bring the count up to keep him where he should be to be a good performer, you're not allowed to give any more of an iron shot anymore. You have a horse that has a breathing problem and you want to put a horse legitimately on a nebulizer, you can't do that because the nebulizers have cortisone in them. You can't use it. You have a horse that has a joint problem a little bit, and every so often you need to go in there and to drain the fluid and to get it good. Well, HISA is telling you got to do that 30 days before you race. Well, 30 days, it's a waste of time and a waste of the owner's money.
Sure is.
Yeah, because time the 30 days is up, and you got to re-inject the damn thing.
So I can go on and on and on of the stupidity. Of course, the stupidity also started with the claiming of horses and the voiding of horses and voided horses who come back and win like crazy. You know, they expect that if a horse races in our business 1.1 miles or whatever at 40 miles an hour, and then you put a claim on a horse and, you know, he comes out of the race just a little dinky. Well, the next day or two, he recovers and he's fine. And in this business, they jog the horses on the concrete. And if he has just a little bit of a nod, the claim is voided. And they got to come up with something different. They got to come up with maybe if a horse has a broken bone in 2 days or something like that, that they could void a claim. But for the other kind of stuff, I just don't think it's good. But I don't know. I know they're trying to protect the owners. But ironically, in the HISA, you have, I don't know if I should name them, but you have people from the harness business who are veterinarians who are putting this motion forward. Okay, they're the ones who are setting the bar and banning all substances and all the therapeutics that are necessary to keep these athletes in check and to keep them performing at a high velocity. Okay, and I'll be damned if I'm going to put my money up and the owner's money, because it's an expensive business, and I'm not able to treat a horse. In other words, you're telling me that if I have a horse who has a red blood cell deficiency and I want to pump him up with a little bit of an iron shot once every 10 days, you're telling me I can't do it, okay? Or a horse that has a thyroid problem and he's got a low thyroid, he's not going to race well, and you want to up the thyroid with some therapeutics, or the joints, as we mentioned, or whatever. And in other words, what are they telling me? Well, it's your problem. You suffer with it, and it's just too bad. Well, it is too bad, and that's why I'm not going to expand until I see if there's going to be a change.
There will be no change.
It's enough. It's enough of a business to take a chance because it's risky. And you can't,
George, listen to me. I got some stuff. You know, it's called hemocratic. You know what that is? When you take the horse's blood, the the creatine, and all that. Well, this is a hemocratic. I got this gallon that I pay $135 a gallon. It boosts up their red cells to immensely. You should see it. I mean, if you come by, I have an extra gallon I bought, but I get it from a pharmaceutical lab, and my horses have been on it, and that's why they're running well. And if you will like it, you stop by the barn.
Okay.
All right.
I don't have I've never heard a horse. But, you know, again, I'm just generally selling this out about and I don't know what their agenda is. You know, when that woman was on 60 Minutes about a year ago, what's her name? Lazarus?
Yeah, Lisa Lazarus.
She doesn't know either the head or the tail of a horse, but she tried to make believe that she did. And the way 60 Minutes edited that piece, it made it look like all trainers in our business are crooked and no good and that we don't take care of the horses. It was a miserable, miserable piece. And they edited it a certain way to make us look really bad and to tell the public how bad horse racing in America is. Unfortunately, you're not getting the crowds anymore. These young kids only want to do telephones. They don't want to do anything with horse racing. You know, when I look out of the booth, and I called the races just the other night at Yonkers on Monday, when I look out of my booth, I don't know if I see more than 3 people sit on the apron watching the races anymore. And that hurts me because I remember when you couldn't even see the ground. All you saw was. And I understand that we didn't have simulcasting in those days, and then times have changed. But when I look down and I just don't see anybody, And I realized that nobody really cares anymore. They don't care about the handle. They don't care about the product. They just want to get it over with. And then at the end of the night, that's it, you know? And I that hurts. It hurts me to see that because it's such a great sport, you know, both of them are. And
When we used to have the post parade, everybody that was inside came outside to watch the horses go down. I mean, the whole
But if-
track went outside to watch it. Now,
You know,
now it doesn't happen anymore.
if I did good at the flats, I used to have friends that wanted to go to the trots, and they'd go to Yonkers. And like I say, I live 15 minutes away, and I hated to go to Yonkers. I don't want to go, I used to tell them, but of course I would. And I remember one time betting a horse, and the horse won. And I get online to go get my money, but I waited about 5 or 8 minutes before I went on the. In those days, you had cashing lines and betting lines, so I
Right.
went to the cashing line to get my money. And since I waited that extra 5 minutes, when I went to the betting line,
They
I
turned it
had
to betting.
that bet in. It was not going to happen. Of course, we do the dual things now, and it's much easier. But that just goes to show you what happened. Unfortunately, in our business of horse racing, the scandals over the years, and there's been too many of them, and they destroyed our business. The riots at Roosevelt, the twin double riots, perceptions of drivers not trying, et cetera, et cetera. It killed our business. It killed our credibility. And a thoroughbred business have had scandal too. You had the batteries, like with the Jose Sandino Hernandez, Jose Amy years ago, et cetera, et cetera. And there was some scandals with Jock, I believe, at Pet National. I mean, that's part of the business, and I know it happens, but it happens more in the harness. And you know, when I was in the game and I first came to Yonkers, and I used to have an owner come to me, and he'd say to me, "Is it my turn tonight to win? Is it my turn?" I said, "Like, what do you mean, your turn?" I don't give a damn. I want to win. I don't give a damn. You know, if I have to start a horse on the Cross Bronx Expressway, I don't care what post he had or what I had to do. I want to win, and that's what I'm here to do. You know, so it's not anybody's turn. But I think before I started, which was in 1977, 78, and before that, maybe at a lot of tracks, a lot of these guys might have took turns. I don't know, and people were used to that, and it put a bad spot on our business, you know, and it was hard. It was hard to always overcome the scandals, and when we did, and things would go very freely, everything would be kind of cool, and everything would work kind of well. Damn, if another scandal came around, whether it was a trainer problem or a driver problem or an owner problem or a betting problem. And next thing you know, the papers just love to pick that stuff up. And, you know, it's the old saying of the one apple on the tree that's bad makes it look really bad. So we had to overcome a lot of things in this business. And now the culmination of it is that we look around the country and we see that if it wasn't for casinos and for the thoroughbred as well, if it wasn't for casinos, you can really count on your hand how many racetracks will be able to stay open. And a lot of them would close within 24 hours because they couldn't sustain. Now you're looking also, I'm hearing not good things at Harrah's, Philadelphia, that they might be looking to close. So you hear all these rumors, you know, you don't know what to believe or what not to believe. But, you know, I find that in racing in general, and that's thoroughbred and harness, that people are looking not to want us to race. They feel it's cruel. I don't feel it's cruel. These horses are treated better than human beings.
Without a
And
doubt.
you know, they just look at it as a different way. And of course, who knows what's going to happen in, I don't know, maybe in 10 or 20 years, harness racing just might be almost extinct in this business, in this country. Thoroughbred racing has been around. It's been around for, you know, a couple of hundred years or whatever. I don't think that's going to happen.
George, I got a bunch of questions here. A couple of them are for you. And here's one of them. This guy, Eric, who listens in, says, maybe George can give us an update on Brian Sears. Because nobody seems to know what happened.
What happened with Sears as far as what? as
He
far as racing.
disappeared. He vanished. No, where is he? He's not racing. He's not doing nothing.
He's either in Florida or in North or South Carolina. I know he's playing a lot of golf, and that's just what he wants to do. You know, Brian made a lot of money in this business. And how about you look at a guy like Walter Case, and Walter drove for me. Walter was to me like magic, you know. He was magic in a bike. He was just born for it, you know. And so was Sears. Sears was the type of driver who could almost win at will when he wants to. That's how good he is. And I don't know. I think Sears and Case, I can tell you that both of them, in my opinion, had trouble with the pressure business, the pressures. And I think it got to both of them. It got to Case a lot earlier because Case was just wound up, you know. And I think Sears, you know, it came to a point where he had a lot of money. He made a great living. He won just about every race a guy would want to win, like and then he decided that he wanted to play golf and take it easy and pack it in. So it is what it is. I bumped into him about 6 months ago in the mall, and I said hello. We talked for a little bit, but other than that, I haven't spoken to him for a while. And one of the good things about me calling the races at Yonkers is I get to see all the guys. And it's not even about the money that they pay me. It's about going into the paddock before the night's races. I see Georgie Bredin. I see Dubé. I see some of the grooms that work for me that warm up horses in the racetrack. I see the siblings of other drivers. I see Pat LaChance, you know, Mike's son, and Stratton. You know, I got along with Stratton, and I see his son doing well. And I remember Austin.
George, I want to ask you a question, George. If you had a name, because I hear what you're saying, and I'm not saying if I agree or if I disagree, because the business is such a tough business that anybody that's in it don't deserve to get smacked around verbally. But let me ask you a question. If I had to pick the top 10 guys in the country as far as driving goes, forget about training, because for the last 20 years, it's all about the driving. As far as driving goes, isn't part of that, shouldn't my selection of a driver, shouldn't this driver have talent and the ability to in other words, what I'm trying to say, I wish I was like you. You're a great speaker. You're a great talker. I get all screwed up. What I'm trying to say is, if a guy like, and there were a lot of guys, I remember back in the 50s and 60s, there was a kid called Bobby Frame that worked for Paul Vineyard. Very, very, very talented guy. Just a stone drunk and never really made it. Now, maybe was it the pressure? Was it the fear of getting in the bike in a race? What makes these guys, shouldn't a Hall of Famer have everything, have the strength to stay straight? In other words, like Barry Bonds. All right, he took all the drugs and everything else. Maybe that's what made him what he is. Maybe it isn't. But I understand what you said as far as Walter Case goes and Brian Sears goes. They were both great. They were both good, but they just couldn't handle it. But shouldn't handling it be part of being great? And why does guys that can handle it and need that crutch, should they go ahead of a guy that might not have won as many races in a short period of time, but is just fearless, like a John Campbell? We both saw John walk into the paddock with steel rods, steel braces on his knees, pick him up, put him in a bike, just completely fearless. And when he went home to his lovely wife, and that's it. Like, if I had to pick the top 10, I would take that into consideration. I think I would. I would like to get your feeling on that.
First of all, if you're afraid, you don't belong in the bike. You can't be afraid as a jockey, and you can be cautious, but you can't be afraid. You have to get back up after a fall. Look a lot of jocks, they get up. Lascano, he's a toughie, and so's Cancel. They took a lot of skills, but they get back up. Hervé Filion, I remember him driving in the bike with a cast on his leg. You got to go up there and as far as the pressure that some people are able to handle and some are not, we can go back to the Meadowlands in the heyday, in the maybe 70s and 80s, where there was a big drug scandal amongst top trainers and top drivers. I'm not going to mention names. It wouldn't be fair to do that. But a lot of them, substance abuse. Look, it's a big money business and it's a pressure business. You got owners on top of your head that are basically want production. I certainly wanted production, but also I always felt that I had an obligation to the fans to give them their money's worth when they bet one of them. I also felt the pressure. I kind of thrived on the pressure. The more pressure I got, the more I liked it. And even when I did television for all the years, and I did Yonkers TV, and I did a lot of TV. I did the first ESPN show, the first national show on television for harness racing. That was live TV. And the more live it was and the more pressure it was, I thrived on it. I thought I worked a lot better under the pressure. But other people, they don't work that way under pressure, and it gets to them. And unfortunately, not only in the racing business, but in other businesses, you know, I don't know. I guess a lot of you know, or you don't know, that I'm a retired policeman. I'm a retired New York City police, you know. And before I was a horseman, I was in the police department. You know, the pressures of doing police work. I can't tell you how many guys are what they call put on the wagon. They take away their gun, they take away their shield, they give them a job on the desk duty because they catch them drunk and they catch them with alcohol abuse or drug abuse, and they try to help them through the chaplains and through different services. So in life, you know, it's just part of who can handle it and who can't handle it, you know. And we've had that problem, but I wish I had the great skill of the drivers like a Campbell or a LeChant or a Walter Case or guys like that had or Brian Spears that had great natural ability. I didn't have that. I started to drive as I was much older, and I was just okay, and I kind of did it more for recreation. But I knew my strength, that it wasn't in the driving, that it was going to be in the training. And the old saying, of course, I'll take 5% of something rather than 10% of nothing. So they can handle it. Some of them could, some of them couldn't. There was a big scandal of substance abuse at the Meadowlands in the 1980s, big time. And those guys all cleaned themselves up. I mean, some of them are around today, and some of them aren't. Some of them are dead, you know. And they were good guys, but they were their own. Look at Lou Williams. Look at Lou Williams.
I was just going to mention him. Lou Williams.
Tremendous talent. And what was great about him is he was black. He was a minority. We didn't have minorities in our business. We did. They were grooms, but they weren't drivers. He could have been a great draw, you know, for our people. And then look what he did to himself. You know, he totally destroyed his career. Walter Kay destroyed his career. Luke Rolla was one of the leading drivers in New York. He leaves New York, he goes to Canada, and in a short period of time, you don't see him anymore. For what reason, I don't know. So I don't know what gets into these guys. And then you look at a Georgie Brennan, who's approaching maybe 67, 68 years old. The guy's going at it full blast. And Daniel Dubé, full blast, all these years. So some people You know, it is what it is. Look at Catello Manzi. I went to I'm going to use the word funeral at Freehold Raceway. They asked a lot of horsemen to come down there a few weeks ago, and I decided to go because I did very well at Freehold. On Saturday, me and Manzi, we lit him up. You know, Manzi's a great driver, and he made a living out of other people's mistakes. He would sit. Somebody threw him, and here comes Manzi in between horses, and he would beat you. And the guy had so many wins in his career. You know, the other night, you mentioned drivers. Jason Bartlett joined the $11,000 win. I called his 11,000 win on Monday night. He won 4 races, and the 4th was 11,000. How many drivers do you think are in the 11,000 flat top? Any of you guys have a guess?
How many won 11,000?
Yeah.
Dave Pallone.
Yes.
Probably
about
5.
4.
That's a good guess. How about 13?
Dave Pallone, right?
Yeah, Pallone's one of them. I don't remember because I looked it up and I did the whole. He named the other 13 that he joined that night. They had Pallone. How about Campbell? He was not in the 11,000 wins. Michael Chan is not in the 11,000 wins.
No, Hervé.
Hervé have even Ron Pierce not in that as well. Brian,
Yeah, but they Anthony, they were reasons. They were reasons for.
I just remember the whole list that I read the other night. You know.
Yeah, but there were reasons for many of them guys that you mentioned that didn't reach that. Many of them didn't have a helicopter taking them from Freehold to Yonkers every night, and many of them didn't race at 2 or 3 like Catello. He was a workhorse. He raced at 2, 3 different racetracks every single night, and some guys just stay right there. So I don't know. I think probably in my top 3. Michael LeChance would definitely be in the top 3. I think you changed my mind about what I call the crutch, because they probably just they were great, they were good, and like you said, they if they got in a wreck the following day, they were still right on the guy's helmet in front of them. They weren't backing off, and maybe they just got caught up in the drug or the drinking bit, and so they probably deserve a pass. They're very, very talented. They have all the qualifications. They're just a drunk or a drug addict. They just fell into that. So I'll change my mind about that. But I think my top 10 list stays the same anyway.
You know, I tell a story when I was at Ocean Downs. I'm going back to around 1980, and I'm not going to mention the horseman. He was a hell of a driver, and we were racing for peanuts at that time. And he used a veterinarian to do some work for him. The guy didn't know, he was illiterate, and he didn't know how to write the check out to the doctor and the amount in American letters. But he knew how to sign his name. He kind of scribbled it. And he's American. He's not a foreign-born person. He's from that area. But he was a hell of a driver. He knew how to make a living that way, but he was illiterate. So getting back to some of these drivers, you know, they're very talented at what they do. You know, I always said that Walter Case probably couldn't put a checkbook together. He probably couldn't align a checkbook, but you put him in a bike, and he was a natural. He was like a baseball player with a natural swing. He was an Arnold Palmer with a natural golf swing. He was in that category, born to do what he did.
He was very unorthodox. He made moves that no other drivers made.
Unbelievable.
You know, and keep them alive, and they would win.
Unbelievable.
Here's another question, George. Maybe you can answer this, or maybe Eddie. It's from Mike. Hey, Larry, what are your thoughts on harness racing possibly moving from Yonkers to Belmont? Was that ever talked about?
Not really. It was a whisper, very, very quietly. They wanted to have thoroughbreds in a day and then harness at night, but I don't think it's ever going to be. I mean, the rumor, no, I don't think so.
I really do. And I just don't think, I don't know if it'll ever happen. I don't think Pharrell is into. I don't know if he's for that or not. I'm not sure. I don't recall if he was, wanted to do something. But you know, you had that in Canada, and it was very successful at Woodbine, where you had the harness on the infield, and you had the runners in the daytime on the outside of the track, and it worked out pretty well. Unfortunately for the harness, you had to have binoculars. You really couldn't see them. You had to watch the races on TV because it was deep into the track as opposed to right in front. But they did it, and it was economical, and it worked. But who knows? Down the line, I don't know what I see. I don't see a bright picture anymore of harness racing in the future. I just don't. I have to be realistic. I don't see it, and it hurts me to see that, but I don't see it. I'm sorry to say.
And what's in your future, George?
Just kind of figure it out now. I'm just going to keep 1 or 2 horses only until, if that's this HISA thing eases up. I'll just keep a couple of horses, and it keeps me busy, and call the races, and that keeps me busy here and there, you know, a few times a month. And I go to Saratoga in the summer, back and forth, you know. And then, I play golf. I keep busy. I just don't sit around. So, you know, that's basically going to be it right now. I'm not looking to go full blast anymore. So I keep a couple of runners, and keep my voice out there to call the races, because I still enjoy it, and I still get up for it like it was my first time. When they call me at Yonkers to come there, I'm like a 5-year-old kid, and I'm like a 5-year-old kid when I win a race. And when that spark ever leaves me, then I have to move on. And it kind of left when I got out of the harness business, because of a lot of things that went on in my career, especially with the race secretary at Yonkers. And I know a lot of you know who I'm talking about. Okay. And
You said it once, Steve Starr. I got 3 zillion stories about Steve Starr, but I can't. I won't. I won't. It's something that I would. That's a whole book in itself. But there are too many really good friends that.
but I can
Nobody
go on
knew him better than me.
throughout the country that were very nasty and very tough, and for no reason. Guys like Ted Leonard, Larry Maller. You know, I take to Roosevelt
Larry
once.
was evil. Larry was an evil guy.
Well, I came to Roosevelt when I first started to, and somebody wanted to give me a horse. You know, we had those big papers for each horse in those days.
Right.
So I came to the office, and I gave Larry the paper, and I said, you know, I got this owner. You know, I'm just kind of starting. I'm trying to, you know, get moving. And I said, I got this horse, and you know, he looked at the papers. He didn't like the horse, and he threw the papers back in my face. And I went ballistic. I went absolutely. And I said to him, I don't give a damn that you don't like the horse or you don't feel he's good enough to be here. Don't you ever throw anything in my face again like that, ever. You know. So of course, once you do that, you're just a piece of garbage to them, and then you become their enemy. You know. And I've had a lot of, because I wouldn't take none of the nonsense. I can go back and tell you the story for Hugh Gallagher. And Hugh Gallagher's dead. Hugh Gallagher was the adopted son of a judge in Maryland. His name was Eric Frederick, and Eric Frederick didn't like me. I never did nothing to this man. Me and him. I went to get my Q license. He made me. I had about 20 some odd drives, 25, 30 drives. No problem. Didn't give me a license. I went in there. We fought. I was the announcer at the racetrack. We fought and we fought. And then I went to Pocono. I drove one qualifier, and the guy said, "How come you don't have your license?" And I said, "Personality problem." I wrote a letter to the USCA to try to get my driver's license. I had a lot of personality problems with these people because I wouldn't take none of their crap. Okay. So Hugh Gallagher now, he's in Delaware, and he just, you know, was all over me as well. But I'll give you a good story. I'm at the Meadowlands one night, and he was the state steward, and I got beat on a 3-5 shot. I'm not the guy you want to talk to after getting beat at 3-5, especially right after the race. I'm like insane. That's just my nature. Okay. I'm very competitive, and I'm not the guy you want to talk to right after, you know? So anyway, the guy with the white hair, what was his name? The paddock judge at the Meadowlands. What was his name? He was such
Teddy.
a good guy.
Teddy.
Huh?
Teddy.
Ted, yeah. No, Ted. Wasn't it Ted?
Teddy. Yeah, Teddy.
Good guy.
Eddie
Super-
Stroud.
Yeah.
Ted
Great
Kroll.
guy. Great
He
guy.
would scream at everybody, but he would never pick up his pen. He would, and you know, you respected him because he was that good.
Because he
So
was a
he-
horseman. He'd been through it.
He
Yeah,
worked
so
for me. He
he
worked for
was
me for
good.
5 years in the beginning, and way in the early 70s, in the
Correct.
early 60s.
So I get called in to talk to the judges, and sure enough, it's Hugh Gallagher on the phone. And he gets really nasty with me on the phone. And I snapped, and I said, let me tell you something. Don't you ever speak to me like you're speaking to me again, you son of a bitch. I don't want to give a damn what you do to me anymore. I said, I'm sick and tired of your crap all the years. And I hung up the phone. And I was screaming. And I come out of that little telephone booth in the driver's lounge, and Ted Kroll has his hands on his ears. And I said, well, Ted, it looks like I'm going to get about a 30-day suspension and a good fine. I had enough of that son of a bitch. Guess what? Nothing. I never heard from this man again, and I never got. How about this? The guy gets locked up years later for DWI in Delaware and gets fired. Where does he wind up? He winds up in the New York Racing Association as a safety steward. And I come into paddock one day, and there he is. Oh my God, I locked eyes with this son of a bitch, and I said, oh boy, this is not over. Don't you know that in the COVID time, they didn't allow owners in the barn area. It was jockeys, exercise riders, trainers, grooms. That's it. And workers, of course, vets or whatever. So I'm in the barn, and he sends one of his cronies who's still there. What's the other guy's name, Ed? The other nasty guy. He goes around the barn area.
Oh, Jesus. It's brother Kelly, right? Tim Kelly?
That's him, Kelly. Yeah, Tim Kelly.
Timmy Kelly.
Yeah. He comes over to my barn and he says to me, how you doing? I said, very good. He says, what are you doing here? I said, what does it look like? He says, well, I want you to know that you're not supposed to be here because owners are not supposed to be here. I said, I'm very well aware of that. He says, well, what the hell are you doing? I said, maybe you should do your homework. I'm assistant trainer in this barn. Oh, really? He says to me, you have your badge with you? I surely do. So I show it to him, and he says to me, we'll see about that. I said, see about what? Get the hell out of this barn, get out of my barn, and the next time you harass me, you come back here, I'll have an attorney who's going to harass you. Never saw him again.
George, I got two questions. One comes from this girl who told me about Teresa. Her name is Cara Manners. She says you know her, and she said to ask you, tell George Anthony that Bobby Fairchild's ex says hi and give him my number. You know what I'm talking about?
No.
Cara Manners says that you know her, and she said to tell you that Bobby Fairchild's ex says hi and to give him my number. Okay. Well, if you don't know it, you don't know it. The other question is right here. What's that?
It doesn't ring a bell.
Okay. And this guy, Eric, says, Larry, please ask George about announcer John Booth and why he was fired at the Meadowlands.
Bothy, not Booth, John Bothy. I like John. You know, John worked also for WCBS. He was the weatherman, and in his apartment, in his basement, he used to do the weather every 30 minutes on WCBS radio. And I liked him as an announcer, but supposedly they wanted him to do something at the Meadowlands as far as something with the betting, maybe to make the betting lines or something like that. Anyway, he got into a spat with them, and he kind of admitted that he was a chronic gambler, and they forced him to either do something about gambling, and he told them he didn't want to do it, and that was why they let him go. But John was a good announcer. He went to Ocean Downs after I went, but he only lasted maybe one season or a half a season. You know, I called the races down there 14 years, 7 years. And I came back 7 years, did 7 years more. It was like a second home for me. And I went there not for the money. I went there because it was a great vacation. I loved the people, and it was like a second. It's where I first started. So I always kind of felt really good about going there, you know. And I remember calling races there that the purse money was $1,000, $1,000 claimers for $1,300. And these guys, real horsemen, who gave their life to our business, race for peanuts. And those horses were lamos. There'd be accidents. These guys, when they were retiring, they were all beaten up. Guys like Jimmy Porter, Roman Miller. I can go on and tell you about a whole bunch of guys, you know.
All right, George.
Who never made the big moves. And they busted their butt for years and years and years.
This guy Mike wants to ask you. He says, "Hey George, if you have a guy that was willing to put up $1 million for horses, you should do it. Have one last run." I probably agree with him because you're not going to wind up staying in the thoroughbred business because HISA, HISA, whatever you call it, is not giving up. And they still have standardbred racing.
Well, I can back up what I say because the owner happens to be Lawrence P. Roman, who wants to put up the money.
That's that guy up at Monticello. Is that him?
That's right. That's right. Larry's been with me for 35 years. He's still with me, you know. But
Larry's a good guy.
Two things that I was also asked by a lot of people, how come you don't call the races full time at Yonkers Raceway? And it's because I have a life now. At my age, hey, every day is precious. I don't know the next day what my health's going to be like, and I don't know where it's going to be. And I kind of try to stay on top of everything. I don't want to drop dead in the Yonkers announcer booth one night where they say, oh, you know, he died doing what he really liked to do. I don't have anything to prove in this business anymore. I won the title in New York, and I had great memories and great times. There's nothing more for me to prove anymore. And the only reason I'm in the thoroughbred business is because I had it on my bucket list. I wanted as a kid to always be something to do with the thoroughbred. And when I won my very first race with a horse called North Ocean, the announcer, which was Larry Coleman. Larry's a great announcer. And NYRA never should have let him go. And he was let go because of Anthony Stabile. I'm pretty sure. I'm not positive about that, but I think he had something to do with it. But Larry Coleman was a great announcer that they never should have let go. And I remember Larry calling my first winner, and the horse's name was North Ocean. And in the deep stretch, he had like a 5-length lead, and he said, North Ocean is the king today. He did that for me. I want to just tell that person, I've done everything I wanted to do. There's no reason for me to go backwards. I want to enjoy the rest of my life. I don't want to be obligated to 7-day-a-week horses. You know, like right now, I'm with Maselli, and if I don't want to go to the barn, Mike is there. If I train a horse and a horse gets a couple days off after you train him, I don't really have to be there. I try to balance myself to where I play golf and I travel and I do things. And I'm at that stage now at 75 years old where I don't know how much time I got left. I might have a day, I might have a month, I might have 5 years, 10 years, 2 years. I don't know. And I'm going to enjoy what I want to do now. And I want to do it at my pace. And I think that physically, I don't want to get into all that, stuff anymore as far as training. And I could do it. Believe me, I could do it. I know I could do it if I want. But I know my limits, and for me to go up and down over an hour a day and the tolls and the rigmarole of shipping back and forth and everything, it's really not for me.
Especially in the winter.
Let me answer this question. Gary Schwartz says, Larry, I saw you drive Brett's Advantage in a $100,000 race on Monticello Raceway Facebook. Yeah, but that race wasn't at Monticello. That race was at Saratoga. And Benny Webster had, oh God, what the hell was the name of the horse? Seahawk, or one of them good horses. I think it was Seahawk. And he was the favorite, and I was second choice, I think. But we had to get to Saratoga, and it was raining really, really bad. The track was muddy up there. They didn't call off the races, and we were at a private airport. And Benny gave the pilot, I think, an extra $1,000 or $2,000 because the pilot said, "Look, it's really bad." It was a single engine prop plane in a really bad way. Anyway, the bottom line was we wind up going, and somebody, I don't know who it was, put this race on Facebook, and it was a race that me and Benny flew there together. He won. I finished second. We flew back together, and that was it. But it was at Saratoga. It wasn't there. But Benny was one of them guys who was just fearless. I have to tell you, I think I would have passed because the plane was like, it was a tough flight. But the pilot was tough too. Anyway, I get every day, George, just so you know, I get like 50 or 100 of these questions that come in as you're talking. I'm trying to get the ones for you. But George, if you don't mind, I'd like to have you come on a lot, but your microphone, I don't know if you're aware of this, your microphone, half the time we can't even hear you. The other half we hear you loud and clear. And
Maybe I'm not too far away from me. How's that?
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, that's perfect. So now you know. You have a lot to say, and between us, we can have a pretty good podcast. In the beginning, I just talked about me and my experience in horse racing, and talking about the book that I wrote, TV series, and the movie that's coming out. But
of almost every racetrack on the East Coast, you talk about Roosevelt, Yonkers, Pocono Downs, Dover, Rosecroft, Pompano, Canada, racing at Mohawk and Woodbine and
Colonial Downs
race, And then you go into the runners, or I raced at Monmouth, and I raced at Aqueduct, Belmont, Saratoga, and Laurel. And I raced even Laurel this year on the grass. So I've been around a lot, and it's been a great experience, and it's been a lot of fun. There's a lot of ups and downs. People might say, "Oh, that guy did really good," and it's a roller coaster. And I was on that roller coaster a lot. I had my failures, and I had my bad times, and I had my slumps and things like that. That's the horse business. You got to be able to take it, and then you got to move on. You got to kind of erase it and just keep to do what you're doing. A lot of horsemen used to come to me. I'll give you one guy, Gary Matches. One time he come to me. I like Gary. He's a good guy. And he said to me, "I don't know what's going on." He says, "I just can't do nothing right. The horses aren't racing good." And I changed the hobbles, and I changed the bits, and I changed the shoes. And I said, wait a second. I said, "You unscrambled all the eggs. You took a piece of rope." And I said, "You tied it into 10 knots. You should just leave things the way they are." I said, "Make subtle changes and make the changes to where you can go back and revert to the way you were. But just keep doing what you're doing. Keep doing what made you win races. The cycle comes back in racing, not only in harness racing, but in thoroughbred racing. You get your certain amount of times and your certain amount of starts where your horses peak, and that's when you take advantage. So I've had my ups and downs. It's normal. Nobody has all straight ups in this business. But getting back to that other person's question again about getting a bunch of harness horses and $1 million, every time I used to go down to Florida, and I go down every year a few times, I used to go see Lucien Fontaine, and I would take Lucien with me and take him to Gulfstream, and he'd have a great time with me. We'd have dinner, and I'd take him around. I see Bobby Heil, Bobby Vetrano. I saw him recently, and he looked pretty good. And so it's good to see the old timers. Joe Feraldo, not the one at Yonkers, the old Joe Feraldo from Roosevelt Raceway. He had a lot of hard times in his life. He had a lot of family problems, with his son. And then I'm hearing a lot.
And Rock's Dream, Joe Feraldo.
We're all kind of getting up there, So bottom line
I want to tell you a story. I hate to cut you off, but I got to tell you a story because Joe just mentioned the horse's name that I could never think of. There was a time at Yonkers Raceway where I had a horse called Chester Direct. And I think I claimed him from Carmine or Anthony Abatello for a few $1,000s. Okay. And he had a couple of boat tendons, whatever. Anyway, I got him really good. and I think I went 3 or 4 in a row with him. So I had a bunch of purse money, and I says, I'm going to make a score. I wanted a new car. I says, I'm going to make a score. So what I did was I gave I know this is hard to believe, like George, just so you know, I tell a lot of stories on here that are hard to believe, but sooner or later somebody comes on and verifies what I'm going to say. This is the God's honest truth. I gave my father $10,000 and I says, Dad, this is when they were having 25, 30,000 people a night there and handling 4 or 5 million a night. I says, bet the 10,000 to win on my horse. He's probably going to be 6, 7 to 1, and it could handle a $10,000 bet. He might be go off of 4 to 1. So I have the 8-hole, and the program comes out. I got the 8-hole. I think I'm 5, 6 to 1, something like that, and I'm moving up in class. And Satch Werner got the rail. So I know that Satch Werner, he just goes, he don't let nobody go. And I just was not going to take any chances. And I was just going to go right down the road. So I try to time the gate. And I know that if you're right on the gate from the 8-hole, around the turn, it swings and then it stops. And then you got to catch up again. So I try to time it so I stayed about 2 lengths off going around the turn, approaching the recall pole. And the starter starts yelling, get that 8-horse up here, get him up here, get him up here. And then I chased him because we were straightening out them, but he waited on me and I rammed the gate. And when I rammed the gate, I couldn't stop me. I rammed the gate and he made a break, but he come right back pacing. But now I'm a length off the gate. I catch the gate and I leave. Satch Werner parks me past the quarter pole and I finally make the lead. I bet 10,000 on this horse. He parks me past the quarter pole. I make the lead. Around the middle of the last turn, I look back. I'm maybe a length in front, and I open him up, and I chase him because this is Yonkers, a short stretch. And I open him up. Halfway down the stretch, I'm looking at the tote board, and I'm 9 to 2, and I'm looking at the tote board. Now I'm trying 9 to 2, $10. I bet 10,000. How much I get back? All of a sudden I hear the crowd roar and maybe I'm 20 feet from the wire and I look back and here comes, all I see is green and white sleeve coming up, left-handed, whipping the horse that you just mentioned. It was a 5-minute photo. He beat me by a lip at the wire. I went upstairs to his father's box, Dr. Feraldo, his father, and I asked him for a quarter to get back over to Triborough Bridge. That's the true story.
And Rock Stream.
And Rock Stream.
Oh boy.
She was
Yeah,
a good
Joe
man.
passed away, you know.
He was driving a limousine. He passed away in Florida. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
he
know.
passed away. Yeah.
It's
I
a
had
good
a dinner with him a few years ago.
I had dinner with him maybe a couple years ago at Borelli's.
Right.
All right, here's another question. Eric, how are you feeling, Larry? I'm feeling great. The heaviest driver I remember was George Oaks at 260. Anybody bigger you remember, and does weight matter? First of all, yes, I remember that when I first started, there were guys like Harold Story and George Sadowski and many guys weigh well over 200 pounds. And here's another thing. I'm going to ask your opinion, George. I didn't believe then, because I was told that weight didn't matter because you were sitting right above the wheels and you were going from a running start. So my whole life I paid attention to that, and I always adjusted the bike or the seat where you wouldn't lift the horse up, because I was heavier than the Walter Cases at 140 and John Campbell's and O'Donnell's.
I have a great answer for you.
Now I am convinced right now that weight does matter in harness racing. I am totally convinced.
How about Mike Santamaria to Jimmy Marone? You want to talk about that?
That's what I mean. A difference of 250
I
pounds.
see Joe Guarino laughing.
Yeah.
8 hours Rainbow.
Marone was the weight of Mike Santamaria's right leg.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
Well, that's why I put him on plywood
In
jet.
the old days, Mike Santamaria would win a race, you know. But does the weight matter? I think so when it becomes after. Look, a lot of your drivers were the same weight. Norman Duplass, Joe Marsh Jr., Butch Dokie, Del Insco in those days. You know, they were like 130, 140. Carmine was about 130, 140. But when you get to the 170s, maybe and higher, I think it could be a factor. Hey, we're dealing not only in thoroughbred racing, but in harness racing with inches. And it's those inches are very expensive. They were expensive when you win at just what you just said about getting beat on the wire. They're expensive in harness racing. They're expensive in thoroughbred racing. So I think every little thing matters. I do.
All right. Now listen, we've been on for an hour and a half. George, you bring a lot to this whole thing, because the guys that are on here, they've been helping me. After I wind up going through my whole book and telling my whole story, I was going to end the podcast, but these guys and some other friends says, no, keep it going. So now we just talk about nonsense and whatever. So I'm always looking to have, and if I got sick, we were scheduled to have, I had Mike LaChance on. We were scheduled to have Billy O'Donnell on and Ronnie Pierce, and we're going to get to that. But right now, I'm going through too many things to set things up, because I may not be able to keep them. But if it's okay with you, I'd like to call you maybe next Thursday and come on again and keep the microphone closer to you so we can hear all the wisdom that comes, because I think all of these people that watch us, they're tired of seeing me and Joe and Eddie. So you bring a little life to this, and so if you don't mind,
if I'm available, I'd love to come on. I do a lot of podcasts at Saratoga Thoroughbred every summer.
All right. So I have your number. I'm gonna call you. And Joe, thank you. You want to say anything, Joe and Eddie, before I end this?
No,
I want to.
It was good listening to George.
Yeah.
Brought back some old names, some old memories, and it was good.
Very, very interesting guy. He's the kind of guy that if he started his own podcast, these guys on these podcasts that make a lot of money every month, they make $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 every month. He's the kind of guy that could do that. I can't do it, because like I'm going to do right now, I'm going to play a song that I might get thrown right off Facebook because of copyright infringement and all of that. I think the most money I ever got was in the beginning when I was getting thousands and thousands of views. I got $80, I think, one month or something. But anyway, I'm going to end this now, but I'm going to end it because a guy on here says that you still listen to music. And everybody knows, if you listen to the podcast from the beginning, that I would not be alive had it not been for music. And I'm talking about the music from the 40s, 50s, and 60s, and that whole Sinatra and Bennett era and all of that. So I'm going to play music is, and I always said this, it's probably one of the most important things in my whole life. And I'm going to, every time we do a podcast, at the end, I'm going to play a song. Now, the last song I played was It's Getting Late. So, and that's the song that my friend wrote. The next song I'm going to play, that I'm going to play right now. So don't just hang up, just listen to the song. And right after that, I'll end it. But I want you guys to hear the song. And everybody listening, just listen to this song, listen to the words of the song. And George Anthony, thank you so much for coming on. I'll call you sometime next week if you're available.
I'm available. I'd love to come on. And good to see Guarino. Good to see Eddie B.
Same
And
here.
good to see you. And anytime I can, help. And I'd love to talk about horse racing all the time. I never run out of words, I guess.
Hey, George, if you want that stuff, call me and stop by the barn.
How much you charging me?
Nothing.
I'm on
He'll be there. Yeah, he'll be there.
I'll be there this week. I'll be over.
All right.
All right.
All right.
Very well,
Good
man.
night, everybody.
Good to see everybody.
This song.
Always good to see our familiar faces. We have a lot in common.
After this song, I'm going to so thank you all. I'll talk to you all next week. Listen to the song and
By the
cheerio.
way, I'll be
You know something, Satch?
What's that, Daddy?
I've been around a few years myself.
Yeah.
Between your trumpet and my nose, we've blown 100 years together.
Well, I tell you what. Let's start blowing the second 100 years. Right now, huh?
Let me hear.
Okay.
Old man time,
That's it, Jimmy. Swing out there.
he's so mean,
He's so mean.
meanest man
Oh, meanest man.
you ever see.
Oh, yes.
He
gives you youth, then he steals it away.
Yeah, he takes your nice curly hair, turns it gray.
Makes you rich, makes you poor. He's a dog.
He's a dog.
All your dreams and your schemes ain't worth a dime.
So have a good time every day.
That's right.
'Cause we'll never, never get away from old man time. Old man time.
Man time.
That boogaboo. Every year
Every year.
he changes you.
He bends your back, dims your eyes, you see less.
You quake and shake when he's true. You're a mess.
And makes you fret.
Yeah,
That's not all.
yeah,
Plays tricks on us all.
yeah.
Every year.
Yeah.
No sense of rhyme.
So have a good time every day.
Right.
'Cause we'll never, never get away
Swing it, Jimmy.
from old man time. But there's one thing he can't change. Love that's true stays the same. It goes on and on in every line.
All